Welcome to the Wellness Creator Podcast. In today's episode, we are going to talk about why we shut down, at least for now, our coaching program and give you kind of the true behind the scenes peek at what it means to basically leave something that's working.
I'm hyperventilating over here because I'm super nervous about this conversation. No,
Yeah.
I think it's important because I know that there will be people who are listening and nodding as we describe what we were feeling and what we were experiencing. I know they'll be like, oh my God, that's exactly what's happening to me, and then there'll be people who run programs who are like, what are they talking about? That's not how I feel. So, okay. Do you want to just maybe give the backstory when we started and why?
Yes. So just, I don't know who's listening to this. So some of you listening know us and have been working with us and have been using our software platform since the beginning. And some of you are probably newer and just looking for advice. So on how to be successful on Marvelous and teaching online. But I think it's helpful to hear from creators who've been at this. So we started our software company. We joined forces 8-9 years ago. And then we very quickly, like within a year, launched a coaching side of our business. We did that because we wanted to fund our software company through our coaching and our online courses. So that's just going to give you the backstory. Like that's like we were basically self-funded for the most part. Up until COVID, I'll just say like everything changed and all of our businesses and structures and things exploded and it was black holes and nebulas, like everything was different. But for the early years, as we were growing a tech company from scratch, we used online education and coaching as a way to fund the expenses of that technology.
Mm-hmm. And it was great and it was fun and it felt very valuable because it was new, like online wellness, like that term didn't even really exist back then. Like nobody knew how to scale or grow or market or opt in or write an email or anything. And we were learning it, as we grew our software company, we were figuring things out. And then we hired a million coaches along the way. And we just, took what we learned and ultimately passed it down to our coaching clients because it's a different skill. Like you don't go into yoga teacher training or whatever health coaching with a degree in online business. So
Right.
it felt important. And what we talked about felt new and needed because we were kind of distilling it down in a way that I think made sense for wellness teachers and coaches.
Yes. So I will also say just, we did this essentially out of an act of desperation when we started. You and I had met in an entrepreneurship program.
Yeah.
We both were starting software companies and we clicked and we both were kind of on our own tracks with our own companies. And we knew though, like after a few months, I think of knowing each other, that we wanted to make something together. And we initially thought it was going to be something very different, like unrelated to anything that we ended up making so far. And but what happened is when NamaStream, now Marvelous, took off, started really taking off, and we joined an accelerator, a startup accelerator, and you came on board, Sandy. Like then we kind of put that other project really on hiatus because we're like, oh, you can't do 500 things and build a tech company. Go figure. So that is still over here on the side, just that, put a bookmark in that. And so what we ended up doing is like we were scrappy. Like we were going to make money however we could make money so that we could pay developers and like pay for server costs and all the things, right? So we did what any scrappy founder would do is we're like, how do we solve problems for people that they'll pay us to solve? So one way is to sell them software, but like, how do we make more money so that we can grow this thing even bigger, right? So that we can invest in Facebook ads, so we can hire another UX designer, whatever it was. And so we were very open to the questions that we were being asked, whether it was like, I don't know how to upload my videos efficiently. I don't know how to edit them. I don't know how to film myself. I don't know how to write emails. I don't know how to grow my Instagram. Like all of the questions that you and I got to work just figuring out how to solve those questions and those problems for people. So you're right, we did. We hired a ton of coaches. We took a ton of online courses. Like you and I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in education for ourselves over the years. And we distilled that knowledge into podcast content or blog content or online course content or coaching programs. And that's really what that's what this is.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
then one day happened in 2020 where the truth is we didn't need to do that anymore, right? Like our software company in 2020 got to the point where it more than could fund its own growth, right? And yet our coaching program also grew very quickly during COVID because um because people needed to come on, the same reason the software
Hmm.
program grew. People needed to come online and now they needed the skills of copywriting and filmmaking and whatever. And so we kind of rode that and we hired into the coaching program, we hired a team into this side of the business as well. And ultimately, like, and then we got to the point where like, oh wow, we're growing and running two very distinct companies at the same time. And it feels like a good problem to have. It feels like it's a great problem to have, but it was also exhausting. That's my take on it.
It also, yeah, and at one point after COVID, we decided to, like
Split
legally
them.
make a split
Yeah.
between took the coaching out, that
Yep.
revenue. I worked there, you worked on the software,
Yep.
and we each had a team member, and we were there to do our thing. However, in hindsight, what that did was split our brains apart, and it seemed like, Sandy, go grow that. Jenny, go grow that. And, we'll still, talk and converse and work a little bit on each other's sides. But I don't know, it felt kind of terrible because I was out of the
Terrible.
loop and then you were out of this
Yeah.
loop and we were no longer doing things together. And I would ask you like, hey, I have this idea. What do you think? And because your brain wasn't like fully in on the coaching side, you'd be like, sure. And same, like,
Yeah.
what do you think about the features page on Marvel? I'm like, I don't know. And we were fractured, right? And I think the magic of Jenny and Sandy is that when we put our head together on the same thing and we're both like immersed and deep, that's when magic really truly happens. And to take ourselves and split and like, you go there and I'll go there, it didn't work. I mean, we did fine. Like we were fine,
It
but
worked, but we were both
didn't,
miserable.
it
Like,
didn't
let's
feel
just say
good.
we were both really
Yeah.
unhappy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's taken a couple of years of like that, like sometimes just low hum of unhappiness and sometimes louder booming
Mm-hmm.
crying moments of unhappiness. This is like the raw truth, folks. Like to just finally have a moment. We were both on the same page at the same time about this and we're like, hey, we don't have to do this anymore. Like there's peace. There's something else available. And I mean, at least for me, I think that the coaching side of what we've made, I for a while have felt complete with it. Like I have felt proud and done. And the only reason for me to have stuck around was to be of service to you and because I love our clients and I love being available and I love the connection. There's like things that obviously were incredible.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's still like that low hum of something isn't right. And that
Mhm.
affects every single part of your life. Like that's what I
Mhm.
believe is even though I'm only, it would be like, okay, I'm only going to give X number of hours a week to this. So like everything should be fine. I should be able to compartmentalize this
Right.
and go and run the other business and live the rest of my life. And it shouldn't matter, but it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, it's like we were really using logic to make
Yeah.
sense of this,
Yes.
and we would say like, what is wrong with us? Like,
Yes.
we have incredible clients, we've got all this content made, we've got great courses, we've
Yes.
got it only takes us whatever X hours a week. Like,
Yes.
what the hell is wrong with us?
Yes.
And that's like saying, you've got the house and the partner and the car and the job. Like, why aren't you happy? It's the same thing, right?
Yeah. 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 No, it was like Sandy, this moment I told you about that was like, I had to go get something notarized. So I went to the bank and I was just like, this person has to work at the bank and notarize things all the time, like for people. Like I only do this with this limited capacity. What is wrong? And I actually like it. So what is wrong with me?
Yeah.
And then I love that you're teasing that out, because that was the conversation we have, is that like you're trying to solve the problem with logic and reasoning.
Yeah.
And sometimes the answer doesn't lie in logic and
Yeah.
reasoning.
And we would, to that point, like we would try different, so in like the mindset world, we would say like you and I kept changing the circumstances to
Yeah.
make ourselves feel better. So
Yes.
we had it as a $6,000, year-long program. What
Yes.
if we did a membership? Let's turn it into a membership.
Yes.
And for me, what that did is like, if we ever want to end this, get out, I don't feel so trapped. Like we can just like, you know,
Yeah.
it's a membership and we have full right to just be like, this is the last month.
Yeah.
And so we kept changing circumstance to see if we could make this feel better. And of course it didn't. And the other thing for me, like it started to come as this like wave, and we're talking, you know, a year plus of
Two
this,
2 years on my
2 years
side. Yeah.
of just like, God, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
and then
Something
we
isn't right. Just that
something
like
not right.
low hum of like something isn't right.
Yeah, and we'd get off a coaching call and we, it was like great and the people are amazing and we'd be like, "Yes, this is good. Let's just
We can do this.
grow this."
Yeah.
And we didn't grow it. It
Yeah.
just didn't
We didn't
grow.
ever want to market it.
I didn't want to
I
market
mean,
it.
I think that that's I think that that is the thing that you need to listen to. Is like part of the reason we're putting this episode out is because we want we're not the only people in the world to go through this. And
Mhm.
we want, you to see and hear a true story of that struggle. I liken this, Sandy, to walking away from other careers or jobs. Like, people do this all the time. Like they have a good, quote unquote, good job and they walk away.
Mhm.
And it's like nothing was like fundamentally broken, except for,
Right.
your intuition. You know, intuitively it isn't right.
Yeah.
You know that you need to be doing something else. And I just think we can talk ourselves out of anything if we want to. And we can be as logical as we want. But when I take that the other direction, I'm like, I should be practicing in a Big Ten law firm. If I'm going to be logical about my life choices, like, why am I not working at a Big Ten law firm? Like, why am I doing any of this? Like,
Mhm.
so it doesn't work. The logic and reasoning, like, your life is so much more complicated than that. So, I mean, we are in a situation where we had a program that had brought in millions of
Yeah.
dollars over its life. And it had different iterations, as you said, in different price points. But and I think a lot of people would think and will think, if you're listening to this, you might think we're totally nuts to do that.
Mhm.
But on the other side of us walking away from this is our ability to fully give ourselves to the other
Mhm.
business that started the whole
Mhm.
thing,
Yeah.
and to our own interests and passions that we've like had zero time and attention for over the last 8 to
Right.
10 years.
This for me, as this feeling started to creep in, I mean, I felt this when I shut down or I didn't shut down, I sold to my
Yeah.
partner my orthotic clinic and shoe store, where I just felt so stagnant. I just
Yeah.
couldn't tape another box
Yeah.
up and send it back to New Balance. I couldn't talk about someone's plantar fasciitis or bunion again. Like I just, and that was the same feeling because over all these years, we're still answering the same questions,
Yeah.
right? And so this like love our clients to death, but personally, I just started to be like, I don't want to answer these questions anymore. Like I did a lot of the copywriting. I still really love that. But the basic strategy, what's an opt-in? I couldn't. Like I just started to say, I can't do this. I cannot
Yeah.
answer this. I cannot coach on this topic anymore. Plus, Jenny, we've both said when we started, nobody was talking or teaching this. And now you just open up YouTube,
Everybody.
look in my
Yeah.
inbox,
Everything.
everyone is
Everything.
teaching online business. Like we
Yeah.
don't need to do this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. I think that is a big part of it, because this is what we said to our clients when we sent out the note that we're closing the
Mhm.
coaching program down, is like, at heart, we are both founders. And so what we do and where we're alive, where we come alive in the world is when we're making new things. And
Mhm.
we certainly could have chosen and could still choose to make new things in that particular area, but neither of us have the desire to do that, right? So you have
Mm-mm.
to listen to that. Like I think that that is, if we were in a situation, if I was in a situation where I couldn't feed my kid or whatever, like that's a different calculus, but that is not the stage that either of us are in life. And we have another larger thriving business that we can contribute to still together. And then I just also want to say this, like the other things that you and I were first talking about when we met,
Mhm.
I think for the first time in 8 years,
Mhm.
like we've both been like, hey, we actually, hey, remember those things?
Mhm.
Remember those things we
And
talked
then,
about
like,
like
light up,
10 years ago?
let's go to Iceland and do that thing that we
Yeah,
wanted to
like maybe
do,
we're gonna go
Jenny.
to Iceland. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we actually are going to we're going on a trip, like a kind of a retreat for ourselves, a work trip in Belize here soon, where we're gonna kind of be diving into that next phase. But in the
Yeah.
meantime, we have a huge new project with Marvelous, which all of you will be hearing about soon, that also needed kind of our creative energy and life force. And
Yeah.
I think there's just something about dividing yourself. Like we both are moms, like we both have a software company to run. We both have other things we have. And
Yeah.
so you can only divide yourself so much.
Yeah, and I think I know we've mentioned this in the past, but I just want to reiterate this, like when you are the type of person to love, like a founder who wants to create new things, when you create a company, like a 7, 8-year-old software company or an 8-year-old coaching company, it no longer is about creating and thinking about new. It's just like maintaining and running, and it kind of becomes awful for those like
Yeah.
founders like us, right? So we're there, and so we have the privilege to be like, what do we really want to do? And when we got this idea that you're referring to, the Mammoth Project, that's about that we could both, if it's very new, and it is definitely connected to Hey Marvelous, but it's like new, and we're going to have to think about all the things from the beginning. And
Yeah.
that just like all of a sudden we were back to the old Jenny and Sandy.
Yeah. 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 And I think that that is so important to honor. Like I also think that success comes from that opportunity, comes from that synchronicity, comes from that, like, just to get a little
Mhm.
woo, because that's who we all are. Let's just be honest. But like, that's where that comes from when things feel tired and harder than they should. Like, you've got to listen to that and either solve for that so that's no longer your reality, or, and so solve for it and stay in the existing situation, or solve for it by leaving the situation and doing something new. Yeah,
Mhm.
there's so many projects that we've done with Marvelous. I mean, that's the thing about a software company. Like, it's a playground of sorts. Like, that's what we have tried to make ours about. And you're right, there's a ton of it that is maintaining. But there are also opportunities, like as technology evolves and the internet evolves, and which has happened a ton since we started, there's opportunities to do things now that we never could have technically done when we first
Mhm.
started. And that starts to feel really exciting for people like
Mhm.
us. Like, whoa, if we were just starting right now, how would we do this a little differently?
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
could we implement that on top of what we have?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think it's so, yeah, I feel really excited. I'm sorry to all the clients. I do, because I know there was great value in the program that we created, and we did do it very, very quickly. And I think for us, it when we finally made that very hard decision, like, okay,
Hmm.
we're just, because we kept in that last the few days of deciding, we were still like manipulating things, and like, what if we just did this, and what if we did this, and what if we simplified it and we didn't actually coach live, or what if like, we were like trying so hard to maintain this, and then I remember just kept saying, no, I think we need to shut it down, I think we need to shut it down, I think we need to shut it down.
Hmm.
And that is why when we wrote the letter, and we like only gave our clients like 2.5 weeks or something notice that it was ending. And I just want to address that because it did feel probably very quick to all of them. But I think it was because I know it was because I couldn't fake it anymore, right? Like we could have
Yeah.
gone to
Or
December and
like
it
we
was
would have
like,
changed our minds. I think
yeah.
I was afraid that we would have like talked ourselves out of it again.
Hmm. Let's just keep it going. It's not that
It
much work, you know?
Yeah,
But
yes, yes, and after every coaching call, you're like, "Oh, yeah, I can do this. This is
yeah,
fine."
yeah, yeah.
But it's like, I don't know, there's that part that's the emotional labor, that it's not just
Hmm.
the hours, that you're actually doing the task, right? And
Yep.
you've got to be honest with yourself about the true energy that something takes from you.
Hmm.
And I think the other part is context switching. I just want to say this too. Like, I know that I've said a lot of kind of like woo intuitive things on this, like honoring intuition and stuff. But like the other thing is just the plain fact of context switching that you and I have been
Yes.
having to do
Yes.
for 8 straight
Yes.
years. Like,
Yes.
there's never a day where you're just focused on your job,
Yeah.
because you have two jobs and they're very, very different from each
Yeah.
other.
And we
And
both want to
yeah,
support each other, right? Like, what do you
yes,
need, Jenny? And I'll be like,
yes, 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 yes.
and vice versa. So,
Yeah.
yeah, so that is one of the things we teach is why we
Yeah.
only want you to have one
Yeah.
program or one offer. And like
Yes.
we've we've lived this, right? With
Yeah.
companies, like two
Yeah.
companies with
Yes.
two very capable women in charge. It just was so hard. It was so hard.
I think partly because we neither of us could let the other one completely go. Like,
Right.
so I
Yeah,
will
that's
say
right.
that if we had both been at peace with being like, Jenny, you go do this, Sandy, you go do this, and like we will be shareholders and owners and whatever, but like we really won't get involved, that could have probably been fine. But I
Yeah.
think part of this work together, you and I have wanted to work together because we are kind of magical when we actually work together, and it's joyful for us. Like during those, I call them like those dark couple of years where we hardly talked and hardly
Yeah.
worked together. And it was like very transactional when we did, because I was running the team on the software side and you were running the team on the coaching side. And it was like very different jobs. But
Yeah.
I would be like, what do you need from me? Okay, I'm going to drop in, I'm going to teach this thing, and then I'm going to go back. Like, meanwhile, whatever screens I was trying to understand, or like
It's
issue
just,
I was trying to
yeah.
understand with the tech company, now I've been away for an hour and a half, and I like,
Yeah.
it's just really actually hard. And so
Yeah.
I think like, anyway, no regrets, honestly. Like, I also want to say that like we did what we had to do and what we thought was right for lots of reasons. So when we started, that is what we had to do as two women and moms wanting to build a technology company from scratch without having to like relocate to another country in your case, and take venture funding and like run a company in a way that didn't feel right to us, right? So we had to do this in order to fund our business. And thank God we did, because look what
Yeah.
happened. And then when the pandemic hit, we very much did not need to coach. We had tremendous growth and revenue coming in on the software side. But I feel like there was a calling there for at least the first year and a half after COVID, where like we were helping people pay their mortgages and survive. And that felt really meaningful. I know for both of us, like that felt
Mhm.
very important that we were doing that work also. So
Mhm.
I also want to say like no regrets. Like I think we did the right thing. We let it go on a little longer than we should have. And I think I will take responsibility for sure for that. Like just like the fear of letting go of something that isn't really broken.
Yeah,
I think we,
that's the problem. Plus,
yeah,
there's always people pleasing
yeah,
too.
yep,
Like,
yep, yep,
I did not want to disappoint any of our clients. It's
yeah,
like, oh, we just got three new clients. Like, we can't shut down now.
yeah,
Like I just
yeah,
constantly,
yeah. And we love them, right? Like we
yes,
love them. Like we want
100%.
them to succeed.
Adore
So
them, adore them, adore them.
yes.
Um, but then, miserable, miserable.
Yeah. Yeah,
And so
because it makes no sense.
it
Yeah.
makes no sense.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I really want to emphasize this idea that in your business, you can make decisions that make no logical or monetary sense, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And damn, does it feel good? Like,
Yeah.
like sadness, but also
Yes.
like so joyous. Like, oh
Yeah.
my God, what are we going to do now?
Yes.
Like, I wake up with a little bit more, well, a lot more pep, right? Because it's like, what are we going to do? Like, and we talk a lot more,
Yeah.
and we dream a lot more, and we, you know,
Yeah.
and when you get to a point where you're like good at something, I think we were both very good, are very good at coaching in online business. Great. Like maybe we've got some expertise there, but now I'm bored. Bored.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, right. I always want to be
Yeah.
pushing and learning,
Yeah.
and that just stopped. And so, I love that we made a decision that seems crazy from the outside.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think it is crazy from the outside, but that's okay because we don't have to please anyone other than ourselves. And I think it just creates spaciousness for what's next. So obviously the mammoth marvelous project
Yeah.
that we're getting underway, which everyone will know about soon. But like the other things, right? So I think that there's like this idea, there was so much like just constant troubleshooting and problem solving when you have a successful business, or in our case too, like you just also get to a stage where like every day there are things that like you just have to be in kind of like problem solving administrative mode.
Mm-hmm.
And and like that's okay. And it's part of being an adult, but when that becomes like your only mode of your work and you're a creative person, which I think everyone is at heart, like that's soul crushing. And so anyway, creating, just like letting go some of this emotional labor and some of these hours to create the spaciousness for creative energy is, I think, the best way we can
Mm-hmm.
honor ourselves. And I feel like we've earned it, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah.
really have, both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And monetarily, like I know we'll make so much more money in this direction than hanging on to this thing
Yeah.
that, you know,
Right. That
seemed
we didn't have
okay.
the, yeah, that we didn't have the, like the heart to go all in on.
No.
I mean, I think like the other thing is like passing the torch. Like, you
Yeah.
know, we did this work and other people, and some people who've been our clients have like picked this up and now they do this and they're taking it in totally different directions, and that's awesome. And like that's fantastic. Like it's a relay race. Like that's how I used to think about my work, my legal work and my environmental work. It's like, and it was explained to me by a mentor, so I didn't come up with this analogy, but it's like it's a relay race and it's not a
Mm-hmm.
marathon. Like we always talk about like business is a marathon or your career is a marathon, but it's like I like to think about it as a relay race because like you're going to go hard for the part that's yours, and then you're going to pass that baton to the next
Yeah. I
person
love
and
that.
they're going to take off and do it their way. And that's actually really beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
That's a great analogy. I like that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, there it is. There's our heart laid out in
yeah.
front of you. The truth, the hardness,
Yeah.
the unhappiness, the frustration we've been experiencing behind the scenes. And again, I just want to say to all those clients that are listening, we love and adore you.
Yeah.
We want
Yeah. Yeah.
nothing
Yeah.
more than success for you.
Yes.
Um, they all have access to the courses, like they're taken care of as much as we could. And I know they'll do amazing things.
Yeah. They don't need us. I mean, I think that's the other thing that you and I just want to say that
Yeah.
out loud.
Yes.
Our other conversation that we had with each other
Yes.
is like every single one of these people is fully
Mm-hmm.
capable of implementing this,
Mm-hmm.
and like they don't need us to hold their hands for them to do it. Like they are fully capable of following what we've taught, our methodologies, making it theirs and finding success. And I think that there's a lot of peace that comes from knowing that. I
Yeah.
also do want to say for folks that aren't current coaching clients, that are maybe clients on the Marvelous side or Marvelous curious or just generally in the wellness industry, the decision that we made going forward is to put our content out as standalone
Mhm.
courses or kind of an academy that's grouped together. We haven't made that decision fully, but it's not like we're taking everything and not making the trainings available. First of all, a lot of that is coming out in this podcast, and that's kind of like how we envision this podcast going forward, is us sharing a lot of those teachings that were previously kind of gated behind a paywall. but also, the courses themselves are going to be available. It's just really the interaction, the direct coaching with us that we're pulling back on. And so
Mhm.
part of this decision was making these materials, which are for the most part beginner online business materials for folks in the wellness industry, making those widely available and affordable to anyone who wants to take that on without having to build in a budget for coaching.
Right. Yeah, I'll put the link in the show notes for the Wellness Creator Business School. Those are all available, super affordable. But I'm
Yeah.
glad that you said that, because that was one of the things we wanted to talk about in this episode, and I
Yeah.
forgot, is that we are switching gears to like coaching behind the paywall, to putting all our knowledge publicly, through the podcast, but also through YouTube. And we are
Yeah.
focusing on our visibility work, and we are focusing on list growth, as we've at nauseum talked about to our
Yeah.
past clients.
Yeah.
So here we go. Like, this is exactly what we advise. And we are going to up our game with frequency. I hope with the quality, with the little thumbnails, all of it, so that we can grow the audience and reach people who are not using Marvelous and perhaps want to.
Yeah. Yeah. And it comes at a great time because a lot of our competitors who popped up right around the beginning of the pandemic are kind of shutting down. Like there's been a trend over the last year. So there's also like kind of a lot of folks in our industry that are looking for a home for their online teaching. And we want to make it clear that Marvelous is the correct choice and the right choice for many of them. So we're putting ourselves out, having more public conversations. And yeah, that's how we're going to be showing up and making everything as available as possible. The teaching that we've spent the last 10 years really
Mhm.
gleaning in this industry, like not holding back, not gating anything anymore.
Yes. There you go. Thanks, Jenny. That was
All
fun.
right.
That was hard, but fun.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Sandy. And thank you all for listening. And thank all of you who have, spent time with us coaching and in courses for taking a chance and working with us. And we've loved serving you and we've loved working with you. So onwards to the next thing.